Welcome brethren, and thank you for joining us on Planet Beer TV. So a couple of weeks ago, me and Paul made good on our long threatened visit up to Leeds to visit Northern Monk. While we were there, we had a tour across the two sites, the refectory in the old Flax store, which is the home to their original brewery and now their tap room, and we also checked out their new brewery, their Big Boy Brewery, which is a 5 minutes drive away in the city centre. We'll be releasing the content in 3 parts, the first of which is Paul's interview with Russ, the co-founder and the guy who pretty much started it all in his mum's cellar 10 years ago. Stick around until the end because we'll have a little preview of what's coming up next week, but for now, enjoy this one.
Russ, thanks for inviting us up here to have a chat with you at the amazing old Flax store.
It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming along, yeah.
Yeah, really excited about it. So, Northern Monk.
Yeah.
How did all this start then?
So this started way back in 2013. I think it was the 10th year anniversary of the founding of the business. A couple of weeks ago, LinkedIn kindly reminds me once a year. But broadly speaking, at the time, we felt like there was kind of like British trad brands predominantly doing cask beer, maybe with kind of dated approach to branding and brewing technique, or there was kind of some American imports or some breweries taking a lot of inspiration from the US, where we didn't feel like there was a real depth of brands or much kind of innovation. And I think, you know, the big inspiration for us, and I guess the problem we were looking to solve and what we wanted to see more of was progressive breweries, kind of, well, for us from the north, but from the UK with the depth of brand and kind of like a bit of a nod to that tradition of brewing in the country and a bit more of a reason to believe. And that was the foundations for Northern Monk, and I guess the 2 elements of the brand name, the Northern and the Monk. And yeah, I was working for a pigments company, and basically I was selling these high purity pigments that went into pet food, cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, like none of which I'm particularly passionate about. Got a dog and make sure we get good food, but the colour of it doesn't massively interest me. So I got £5,000 from my granny. All of the grandchildren did. She downsized a house and moved to a former council house in Edinburgh. And I thought this is an opportunity to like start a business that I've dreamed of for years.
So all this comes from a £5,000 startup?
Yeah, that's where it started, yeah.
It's incredible.
I was in Bristol at the time, so can't start Northern Monk in Bristol, which has always been the working title and the name for the brewery. So moved back home to save money, and we started in my mum's house. The cellar was the hive of activity, and we built it from there.
Yeah, from small seeds and all that. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So I think you mentioned why you started Northern Monk initially, but who were your inspirations?
My inspirations, that's a really good question. So certainly, like, if you look to the US, and kind of one of the ongoing inspirations for us is the likes of Sierra Nevada.
Yep.
In the UK, definitely the time, like Buxton, Magic Rock. We were massive fanboys, and so we started, and the way that we were able to build a brewery with £5,000 and some credit card debt and a couple of loans and things like that was through brewing on other people's kits. So we used a brewery called Hambleton's up in Ripon. I'm digressing slightly here, but anyway, eventually when we had our own kit here, we got a Malrex kit, and we were stoked because it was like, well, I think Colonel started on that, on a Malrex kit, and Magic Rock and Buxton as well. So yeah,
that's got some kind of magical power, that kit then, by the sounds of it. Yeah,
well, I don't know if it did. For our first few brews, it probably didn't, no, because they didn't quite hit the mark, but they did in time. We absolutely got there, yeah, and it was great.
Brilliant. So, as we said, there's been sort of humble beginnings and small starts, but at some point between then and here, you must have had that big break. Can you remember what that was?
Yeah, I don't know if there was like a big break as such. There was certainly some really like pivotal moments in the journey. I remember when we always had this ambition of creating like the best beer experiences, ideally in the world, and we were just like hell bent on just creating incredible beer and really thinking about it as an experience. I think that's kind of come through the Patrons projects, for which we'll probably talk on, and just that that passion about having a depth of brand and real, like thinking about things as an experience. Anyway, really what came first was the liquid, and when we got a medal at the World Beer Cup, would have been 2016, I think it was, for Eternal.
Yeah.
It was the first English IPA to have been awarded a medal at the World Beer Cup. Like, we're in good company, so you'll know about the prestige of the World Beer Cup. There's a lot of these awards these days, but it's like the Beer Olympics. So getting that was a real milestone moment for sure. In terms of like other big breaks, I don't know. Well, yeah, I think we were, it's a combination of luck and hard work, but we were lucky enough to launch at, like, again, places that we were really inspired by, and some of the people we were inspired by had launched that. So the Craft Beer Co. Clerkenwell maybe doesn't have quite the same gravitas these days, but I think it's where Magic Rock launched. There was some kind of lineage there. We launched there and up at North Bar as well, obviously, that we're big fans of too. So yeah, there was quite a few along the way, I guess, but I wouldn't say there was like any big break moment.
Yeah, just small steps. But big morale boosts along the way.
For sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, on the beer side, I think the biggest one would have been the World Beer Cup. That was like, shit, we can do this. Yeah.
Awesome. I think you mentioned sort of experience in beer. Yeah. And I think anyone who knows what you brew and how you brew will say Northern Monk and Experimentation go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest with you, there's some absolutely mental sounding fucking beers that come out of your brewery. Is that something you're really focused on, the experimentation side of things, and the unusual combinations of things that you throw into your beer? Yeah, seems to be kind of a forefront of what you do. So can you tell us a little bit around your thought processes around that?
So yeah, it does go back to experience. I think at the end of the day, we see beer as kind of, it should be fun, it should be a social thing. Like, if you talk about focus, I would say 95% of our focus is on making Faith like one of the best beers in the world, or the best hazy pale ale that's like readily accessible in the UK. There is definitely 5% of focus, which is about saying, what can we do that's like really like innovative, breaks the mold, and just fun really. So we take the kind of the day job, if you will, incredibly seriously, but we're not scared of having a bit of fun on the side as well.
It's always that 5% that shouts the loudest, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of things that cut through. But I think, the reality is, we are in a maturing market. Like, the craft beer boom, it's not booming anymore, is it? And I think those things really cut through and bring people into the category, get people excited about beer. So, I'm not sat at home drinking cans of scampi fried pale ale every night, but
which my wife loves, by the way.
Does she?
Yeah,
fantastic.
Much to my disgust, by the way. But it's that's an unusually good beer. I don't. Obviously, it's meant to be a drinkable beer, but it works.
Some of them come together really well.
Yeah.
Some of them don't. Some of them do. But I think credit to the brew team. I think all of them, like, it's one thing making a bad IPA, it's another thing making a bad scampi fried pale ale. So I mean, like, it could have been really terrible, right? But credit to the brew team. I think, like, if they ever don't taste great, it's because they probably they were never intended to taste great, and it's not certainly not any fault of the brew team.
Yeah, and from a personal note, one of the rare highlights of COVID for me was actually the Sunday dinner series you did, and that was a real ray of sunshine, I think, in a real quite dark time for everybody. And I remember vividly a bunch of us drinking that on a Sunday from me, and it was great fun, and it brought a smile to everyone's faces.
Exactly.
So fair play.
That's exactly what it's about. Like I say, that I'm certainly not at home like chinning cans of scampi fry or cheese and onion lager, but if you're in a group and you're kind of passing the can around, having that swig and sharing that experience, where you're going, what are they doing? But you're still entertaining, I think, and brings a smile to people's faces. So
experience is the word then, really. Yeah,
totally.
Great. Right, hard-hitting journalism time, Russ. So, in an industry where going into big supermarkets is potentially frowned upon, and various breweries have various levels of success with that, you seem to have managed to balance that side of things with your craft essence, essentially. Tell us a little bit how that works for you guys.
I think it probably goes back to that focus on experience again. Like, we've always built the range out in such a way as, like, we want to have those like really immersive, like pushing the boundaries of what beer can be experiences, but we also want to create some of those kind of, you know, those go-to beers, those fridge beers, those like barbecue beers that are just more accessible in terms of price to a certain extent, in terms of ABV and style and all of that really. So I think that focus on trying to create the best beer experiences for the different kind of drinking occasions and different channels, it doesn't mean that we've always got it 100% right, but we certainly tried to. And I think for me, you know, as much as it, you know, it is a bit frowned upon in the industry possibly, and I understand why, but I think, you know, it's really exciting to be able to go to, well, actually, I'll give you an example. My dad's side of the family live up in Ballantrae on the west coast of Scotland. Like, the west coast of Scotland is super sleepy, it just feels like a bit forgotten. Ayrshire, there's a co-op in a small fishing town called Ballantrae, and you can go and get a 4-pack of Faith now. Amazing. Alongside like, Punk IPA, Camden, something like that. And, you know, I think those moments for me are pretty awesome, to think you can get, hopefully what people would agree is like really great quality, you know, progressive hazy pale ale in a place like that. And certainly, like, we always had that ambition that we wanted it to be up there as like a real kind of a bit of a household name really. But equally, you know, we put so much into the Patrons projects and like the more unique beer experiences as well. So in terms of our energies, we've always made sure that, well, we tried not to drop a ball in each one and create value-add experiences for every channel. Yeah,
I'm not too snobbish about it, to be honest with you, you know, but, you know, people obviously are. But at the end of the day, it's a business, right? So you've got to.
There is that as well.
You've got to run a business.
Yeah.
So it seems like something's going right, because we're in the old Slack store here, this amazing venue, and or the refectory, isn't it, as it's called. So tell us about your venues, and because there's two in Leeds. You've got the brewery and you've got the refectory.
Yeah. So the original site, is where you touched upon, was like my mum's house, and then we started looking after about 8 months for the real home of Northern Monk, if you will, like somewhere where we'd have our brewery. So we actually looked at like Dean Clough Mills in Halifax. Like, I was wandering around like derelict mills for a good few months there, having a great time doing it as well, dreaming of what could be. But when we found this, like, we are, you know, as you just walk like 5-10 minutes walk from the centre of Leeds, we're in a grade 2 listed mill building, like at the beating heart of what was once the Industrial Revolution. No, a friend of the family's dad's invested in the brewery, and he owns the building, so it does help.
Because it's obviously had a lot of work done to it, and it looks immaculate.
Thanks, man.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, well, you know, I'd like to say me and Brian did it, but we clearly didn't do it all, but did put some shifts in. I'm not sure how much impact we made, but really it was just about kind of stripping it back. So like, there was like, it was all segmented into different rooms, like all the stone flags were covered in carpet tiles. It was ridiculous, like the pictures are wild. So we really did. You say we've done a lot of work. In reality, there isn't actually loads and loads of work. It was mainly about stripping it back and kind of just, giving it a bit of TLC really. And it's an incredible building. It's a grade 2 listed mill building. You might even be able to see it in shot, but that building there was once the largest freestanding room in Europe.
Really?
Sheep used to graze on the roof. You can see those roof lights, like a real feat of Victorian architecture. So,
Awesome. There's a heritage and a history. It's amazing. It's cracking, and I'm looking forward to getting to know it well later on this afternoon, to be honest with you.
We chose the right day. The garden's great too.
I'll put a session in, don't worry.
We were lucky to find somewhere with quite a similar aesthetic and similar kind of history, I guess, in the northern quarter of Manchester too. So
that's the vibe I got when I came around the corner. That's what it feels like. That's
great.
That's really good.
Thanks, man.
So you've set up a scheme called the Faith in the Future scheme, which is essentially a nod to the £5,000 startup inheritance that you had. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the scheme was really inspired by the origin story of Northern Monk. The £5,000 that was gifted from Granny Bissett was a game changer, and like, a real seed of hope, and brought everything to life for us. So we've worked a lot within our community and we've done a lot of charity work, but I think it was 2019, 2020, we actually started, it was originally called the For the North Foundation. We kicked it off by hiking to the top of Ben Nevis and brewing the highest altitude beer in the UK, using the, there's a term for it, but basically the source water for Ben Nevis, a spring right at the top of Ben Nevis. And we raised £10,000, I believe it was initially, but we've since given away about £55,000 and £5,000 grants to charity initiatives across the north in what's now become the Faith in Futures initiative. So
that's amazing.
It's been awesome, man.
Oh, fair play. That's great work here, and all down to Granny Bisset then.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So, what's next for Northern Monk? Is there any ambitions, plans that you want to bring to fruition? Can you reveal anything for us?
For sure, man. So we've always wanted to do a little bit more in terms of the refectory sites. We actually had a site in London for a brew pub that we were like 95% on. We put the down payment on the brew kit. It was just up between kind of Shoreditch and Dalston. We were absolutely stoked for it. We just wanted to do like a little brew pub model, a little bit of canning, and just do something really small scale. Again, focus on that like really, more niche beer experience, I guess, if you will. But then COVID hit. So we're just kind of starting to put plans together again for rolling out the refectory bars. Other than that, really kind of more of the same, to be honest. Like, we want to continue to grow faith and the family of faith, as we call it, like holy faith.
Yep.
You know, genuinely, believe those beers are incredible. Like, and holy faith is an alcohol-free alternative. We do the taste panel 3 times a week, and we get as many people from the business in as possible just to go through whatever's on taste panel that day. And the other week there was holy faith alongside like double IPAs and stuff, and I was like, it's crazy. It was just tasting superb. So yeah, excited about that. We obviously do a little faith for the on-trade as well, which is like the 4% version. More faith, keeping the faith. Yeah,
well, you know, there's always a home in Birmingham, I think, for a Northern Monk refectory, for sure.
Sweet. That's on the list, man. Definitely. We'd like to do that.
Yeah, we'd frequent that quite a lot, to be honest with you. Yeah, cool. When we interview breweries and brewers and people like yourself, we always like to finish on a question.
Yeah.
Very specific question, which is, you could collaborate with any brewery in the world, in history, ever. Who would it be?
It's a good question. There is a list. Timothy Taylor's, we're quite good friends with some of the team at Timothy Taylor's, and it's been on the cards for a long time. And there's talk about maybe next year doing something, but yeah, that would definitely be there. But I have to actually give a lot of praise and credit to Dogfish Head. We've actually recently collaborated with them, so
I was going to say, you've got a collaboration on at the moment, haven't you?
Super grateful for that. But like the dealings with them as a business, and Sam, it's been awesome, man. Like he's been so like humble about the whole thing, you know, kind of flying over to the UK, but also like, you know, the guy's been in the industry, I don't know what, 20 years plus, but he's still so innovative and fresh in his thinking. So with the beer, we made a double IPA, and he was like, we should use some white sage in it, and it was a total curveball, but he's still thinking in that way, and like, you know, that Dogfish Head brand, and you know what they're trying to do is trying to incorporate culinary elements and look at how they can really push the boundaries of beer. And yeah, it's just super inspiring to see that that's still something he's so passionate about, and does so well.
Wicked.
We're lucky though, man. We've collaborated with a lot of the people that we'd want to. I think Yorkshire Tea probably. It's not a brewery, is it? Yorkshire Tea.
There we go. Doesn't have to be a brewery.
Yorkshire Tea. Nah, it's true. There's some other ones there as well, I would say, in that kind of vein. That would be fun.
Yorkshire Tea for life. Yeah, absolutely. Right, Russ, brilliant speaking to you. Thanks so much for your time. We'll let the bar open up, and we'll get out. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
So there we go, guys. Hope you enjoyed that one. We did also talk to Russ about the Patrons project, and we touched on that, but we're going to be releasing that content separately in a couple of weeks in a kind of standalone feature for the Patrons project. If you do enjoy these videos and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, then please consider doing so, as it will really help us in the long run make bigger and better content. So next week we'll be talking to the co-founder and the technical director of Northern Monk, Brian Dickson, and he'll be talking to me about everything kind of from the beer and brewing side. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next week.